I'm really, really thankful for Jimmy Starr and for Eileen for setting up this opportunity for us to talk. It's so neat to reach out to completely different, amazing people that I never would have had the chance to meet otherwise. And so you are the author of a book that's about being gay and of Middle Eastern descent, or can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, so the title of my book is How I Lost My Mind and Found Myself. And it's basically my story in dealing with mental illness and coming out as Middle Eastern and gay. So it talks about my struggles, my triumphs, and how I live a productive life, and all the things that I didn't think were possible are possible.
That sounds like such an important story. There's just so much stigma around it, isn't there?
Oh yeah, I remember when I was first diagnosed 12 years ago with bipolar disorder, I felt a lot of shame and embarrassment. And when I was diagnosed, um, 3 days before I was diagnosed, I had came out of the closet. And that I felt it was like a disgrace and an embarrassment to be gay. And so there were two stigmas that I was fighting at the same time. And I really, before I came out, I really didn't think I was going to live my truth. And it was in the middle of a psychotic episode that I came out. So the worst thing that happened to me was having a psychotic episode, but it also was the best thing that ever happened because I got to live my truth and be honest with who I am. And so like, it's just, the irony is I never really thought I would live my truth, but now I'm able to live my truth, and that's so rewarding. And the stigma with mental illness, a lot of times people used to tell me, people that are close to me would tell me like, no one needs to know you have bipolar disorder. It's no one's business. And I used to feel upset because I was like, why do I have to hide that? It's something that I have. Why do I have to feel shame for it? And, I started, one day, my parents are both diabetics, and I was watching my mom take her insulin shot, and I thought to myself, she has diabetes, and it is something that is manageable with her insulin to manage her sugar levels. She's not embarrassed that she takes this medication. So why do I have to be embarrassed about a mood disorder that there's medication for to balance out my mood? And as time went on, I became more confident within myself. And then I started speaking for NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Health. And before I started to speak to them, I went to one of their workshops, and there was a guy by the name of Michael that was sharing his story about having bipolar 1 disorder, and that's the same disorder I had. And before I heard him speak, I was in a really dark place, and I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I really didn't have hope. I felt like my life was over, and I would just not be able to live a productive life. And when he shared his story and spoke about being in recovery for 10 years and not having any psychotic episodes, and that he takes his medication, and that he has a career, and he's starting a family. And when I heard him speak, I just felt this hope. And I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and I said, that could happen for me as well. And so when I heard him speak, I decided I want to speak for NAMI. I want to be hope for someone else and be an example of someone that's living a productive life and has mental illness, and it doesn't define who you are. So it's like I'm on this mission now. I want to make mental illness look so good that everyone wants it. So that's my mission.
I love it. It's like anybody can think, oh, there's already so many people talking about this fill in the blank thing, but every single voice matters. Like even my little channel, my little YouTube channel, under 800 subscribers as of the recording of this video, it's like any sphere of influence where you can put a positive message out there, it's worth it.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I hope that we can come to a time where everyone talks about mental illness and it's just like right off their shoulder, like, oh, you have bipolar disorder? Okay, I understand. I've learned about that. Or if it's someone that has the illness, they could feel proud of themselves and not ashamed of themselves, or even like schizophrenia, which is a much more complex illness. And do you know the interesting thing is when I started to meet other people with mental illness, I started to realize a lot of them are just so sweet, and the media sensationalizes people with mental illness and makes them view them in a way that like they're dangerous or they're crazy, and that's far from the truth. And people with mental illness are 9 times more likely to be a victim. And 1 out of every 5 Americans have some form of mental illness or experience some form of mental illness in their lifetime. So I'm just hoping that this conversation of mental illness is just something that gets people to be empowered, think strong of it, because mental illness is not for weak people. It's difficult and it's challenging, and you have to be brave to get through it.
Definitely. What do you think are some of the stigmas and like lies attached to bipolar disorder that people have in their minds?
That that people with bipolar disorder are crazy, and that's like far from the truth, or that they're dangerous, or that they're violent. Now, I'm 42 years old, and I've had one physical altercation my whole life, and that was because it was the guy that wanted to fight me was drunk. Like I was outside of a bar, and like I've never caused any kind of mayhem or thought of like doing anything harmful towards anyone. Um, I've never been like, I'm a calm person, and a lot of times people think that people that are bipolar are not calm, or it's just a mood disorder that goes from either being depressed or manic, where you have like tons of energy and could do 101 things, and you're on top of the world and you're the life of the party. So it's simple that it's just a mood disorder that goes from highs to lows, and there's medication that stabilizes you.
Mhm.
And yes, the medication in the beginning, it kind of changes you because you're used to being, either manic or depressed, right? So when you are on medication, it's like a rebirth almost, because it's changing your chemical imbalance to not be so out of whack. So it's like you have to learn to like how you react to things and how you process things and your outlook, like all that stuff changes because your mood is being altered. But then at the end, it's like you're productive, you're living a productive life, your mood is not out of whack, and you learn how to deal with your emotions. And um it's I call my medicine like my armor. Like, you know how like people go into war and they wear their armor. So that's my medication is my armor from this battle I have with bipolar disorder. I feel like if someone is experiencing mental illness, any form of it, if it's schizophrenia or bipolar, um, give the medicine the opportunity to do its job, because a lot of people feel that it changes them and that they don't want to be on it because you could be droopy and sleepy and there's like all these different side effects. But I was left with the question, do I want to live a productive, balanced life, or do I want to be out of whack with my mood and not productive? And so I chose to be productive and take my medication, and I'm able to say I can laugh again, I can smile, I can enjoy things. And
Mm.
it wasn't an easy road, but it was a road that I took and I managed, and now I'm able to be productive. So I'm very grateful.
That's amazing. Man, that must have been just so overwhelming going through that all in the same week. Does
It was
was your family and friends accepting of you?
Well, when I came out, it was a very tough pill for my parents to swallow. And because 3 days later I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, they're like, oh, he has a mental illness. He's really not gay. He has this illness that makes him think that. And then I had to like come out to them again when the chemical imbalance balanced out. And I'm like, no, I really am gay. This is my truth. And my siblings were accepting, but it was kind of hard for them too, because I lived for 30 years in the closet. Like, they never suspected. They just thought, I was David and that's it. They never really thought of me as being gay or that that's how I identify. But I'm happy to say that like I am in communications with all my family and they didn't turn their backs on me. And being Middle Eastern, it's very taboo to come out because even in the Middle East, they sometimes kill people or jail them for being gay. So I'm very fortunate that my story, my coming out story, isn't as horrific as other people's because a lot of people get ostracized, disowned, family and friends don't want to speak to them, and mine was different. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Were your parents born in the Middle East or?
Yeah, they came in the early 70s.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories too. It's like, it's just even premarital sex is cause for, between a straight couple is cause for being killed in some places. So
Yeah, it's insane.
such a repressed society. It just breaks my heart to think, how is it for the queer people there that are absolutely stuck?
It's I when I had visited Jordan a couple of years ago, like 5 years ago for my brother's wedding. And the funny thing is I didn't tell his wife that I was gay or her family. And they kind of caught on, I think. They kind of felt like, oh, because they were trying to introduce me to girls. I was like, oh no, it's okay. I'm not looking to get married. I'm not interested in dating anyone. So one of my brother's wife's brother, so my brother-in-law, took me to a gay bar in Jordan, but it was an underground gay bar. So when you walk in, it's a bookstore, and then you go upstairs, and then when you go up the stairs, it's like a bar area with a dance floor. And he was talking to me, and some of his friends were there, and he was like, David, the owner here likes men, like he's gay. And I think they were trying to make me comfortable in coming up, but I still didn't feel comfortable because I'm in the Middle East. I'm like, I'm not doing this here. It's so dangerous. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And they're very open-minded. Um, the the young generation out of Jordan nowadays. And before it was very frowned upon, like they none of them were accepting of it. And now, because it's a Muslim country, it's religion is what is in power over there. And um it's just sad. And like, my parents are minorities in their own country because they're not Muslim, they're Orthodox Christian.
Okay.
um, so sometimes people are like, oh, it must be a little bit easier because you're not Muslim. I'm like, no, it's still the same thing. It's still the same struggle. Um, and it's just sad. Like, the saddest thing to me is that we have one life to live, and most people don't live their truth because of the fear. And that's so sad. Like, because I know what it's like to not live your truth and to be in the closet and to feel ashamed or think it's disgraceful. And at the end of the day, it's really none of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up Pentecostal Christian, evangelical, so I've had to do a lot of shaking off of the homophobic, transphobic stuff that I was just indoctrinated with.
Oh, wow. That must have been a struggle.
And I have a trans brother, and there's so many people in
Uh-huh.
my family that still don't accept him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's really interesting to talk to somebody from another kind of part of another religious world, and just
Yeah.
like, we're in the same boat, and there are Christians that are accepting and loving, and it's really great to find those people and get some hope that, okay, it's not going to be bad forever.
Yes. But forever could seem like a long time when you're going through things because you think it's forever, but it's not. And everyone's on their own journey, right? So everyone has their own um, processing and it's, I guess, time to be ready to come and speak their truth. And as your brother coming out as transgender, I'm sure that's even probably more difficult because it's changing your whole makeup as what you were born and how what you relate to. Like you feel like you're in the wrong body, and this is what makes more sense to you, and this is what makes you feel more comfortable. And I just don't understand why there has to be so much ignorance around things like that. Like, and especially with religion, because if you break it down in all religions, it's like God says, don't judge one another, love one another. And on Judgment Day, I will be the one that makes the decision, right, about our lives and the things that we did in our lives. So why do we have to deal with each other's opinions about what they think is right or wrong when we're all born sinners?
Yeah. And my whole life I was told, look at the fruit. If something's from God, it's going to have good fruit, and if something's not from God, it's going to have not great fruit. And
Yeah,
you see the fruit of conversion camps, and you see the fruit of making people suppress who they are and not have the ability to love who they want to love. And those people are miserable. The people who don't get to live their truth, and the people who think it's their job to tell them. But the people who are like, this is who I am, they are happier.
yes, I totally agree with that.
Do you think that suppressing who you are really led to the mental illness to build up inside of you?
That's a really good question. And you know what? I've often wondered. I felt like when you suppress something, you're just changing its location and it manifests in somewhere else, right? So I think that because I was suppressing myself, I developed bipolar disorder because I was suppressing and suppressing and suppressing. And I turned to food a lot. I would eat a lot too. And I still eat a lot. But like I remember like food was very comforting for me because I wasn't dealing with my truth. And I just wonder what life would have been like if I could have just been honest with myself and to myself and others around me about my truth, and what life would have been like if I would have came out at like 18 rather than age 30. And it's time that like I can't get back, but everything happens for its reasons. And I'm just grateful and thankful that I'm living my truth now and I'm not suppressing it. And um, I have a family and friends that care for me and love me. And I'm so grateful and I'm so blessed in that way.
That's wonderful. It always makes me so happy when I hear about people whose families accept them. And I just wish that for everyone.
Yeah. I think that when people are surrounded by people's ignorance, I think it's so much more harder because everyone wants to be loved, right? Everyone wants to be accepted. So I just feel so bad for people that um, don't have that support, right? And they have to look outside of that, or they have to go to like the LGBTQ center or like um, groups, like support groups, and then they learn uh, about new people, and then they form new friendships, and then they have a new family they sort of start of support for themselves. So it's nice that they can go out to support groups and that there is help out there, but it's just sad that like you can't find it within your family and your friends sometimes.
Yeah. I'm so happy when people are willing to learn, willing to step out of their comfort zone. And the people that aren't, that are just stuck in these religious fused hatred, they think that queer people choose to be queer. Like, oh, you just thought it would be fun to be a girl. Oh, you just chose to like boys because your dad played with you when you were a kid and didn't and you didn't
Yeah.
and your mom let you play with dolls, or stupid stuff. Like, nobody asked straight people, so when did you realize you were straight? Like,
I know. That's very true.
it's like, stop assuming that people choose this. Just love them, and when they tell you who they are, just believe them.
Yes. I think it's Maya Angelou that said, when people show you who they are, believe them. Life is a challenge for us all, and I just wish that people would be a little bit more kinder and let just not be so judgmental, because when people don't know something, they fear it. And I feel like just educate yourself about the things that you don't know, and they'll make sense to you. And like the mess, and like I said before, the message of the Lord was so simple: love one another, don't judge each other, and He's the person that will judge us. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, why do we have to make it so more complicated?
Yes. Why do we have to make people good enough in order for God to save them? Like, that was never part of the deal.
That's exactly true.
I'm so sick of the Christianese. I'm so sick of how easy it is to go through the motions of being a good Christian without ever seeing an actual transformation happen on the inside. But like, how can we be transformed if we are wrapped up in some lie of saying I'm not this way? I think
Yes.
that's directly standing in the way of God helping us to grow. I never thought of that before.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
And that's so much of what being a good Christian is about, is suppressing everything and just showing your best face and putting on this everything's fine mask.
Yeah. I'm so happy I don't have to wear that mask anymore, because the reality is not everything is fine, that things are a struggle and things can be difficult, but you have to keep on pressing and be determined and motivated and inspired to live your best truth.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do to fight the manic side and the depressive side of bipolar disorder?
Well, for me, so I take my medication, and that balances out my mood. So I'm very fortunate that the medicine works for me. It took a while to find the right medication and the right dosage, but I'm able to be productive, and um, I'm not like the one thing I do miss is the mania, because the mania makes you do you're on top of the world, and you can do 101 things at one time, and you're the life of the party, and it's like such a great mental state of mind because you feel like you're untouchable. But then the mania follows depression, and that's what's very disabilitating. And I don't want that ever again. So I take the medication, and it balances me out. And um, there's still like an underlining kind of shadow of like the mania and the depression that I still experience, but it's not as severe, and it's like I can cope with it.
So when did you write this book? Was it a really healing process for you?
It took me honestly 10 years to write the book. I went through a lot of different, I guess, I had like different feelings towards the book. I was embarrassed. I was kind of shameful. I didn't know if I was going to be comfortable to talk about certain parts of my life. And then I just came clean, and I felt confident. I said, I'm just going to share my story. I'm going to share it all. And if this helps inspire one person, then I'm happy. So, it took a long time, but I'm happy with the outcome. And now it's published. It's on barnesandnoble.com and Amazon. So, and also Kindle. Um, so I'm proud. I'm a published author, and I've progressed in ways that a lot of people around me haven't, and a lot of people around me have progressed in ways I haven't. And I had to learn not to compare my life towards other people, because there was a time when I felt like I'm here, I'm stuck on this, and I should have done this by now, and I should have done that. But not everyone is on the same pace as everyone else, and things happen for people at different times.
Yeah. Comparison is just such a waste of time, especially
Yeah,
since
I agree.
especially since what we put out there is often our most polished best self. And there's nothing wrong with that, but like who's showing the hardest parts. When you only see a tiny tip of the iceberg of a person's life and you only see their accomplishments, but you don't see every single person that's accomplished anything is dealing with major, what's it called? When you feel like you're a fraud and everyone just is going to see right through you.
I understand what you're trying to say, or how like people try to fabricate certain things about them to feel accepted.
Yeah.
Life is you take the good, you take the bad, and there you have the facts of life. Remember that show, The Facts of Life?
And that's something that's really important to me on my channel, is that I'm showing the real struggles. I don't show like my children, I don't show them breaking down and having bad days because they're little and they're not choosing to be on the internet. So I show the cute things that the happy memories I want to save. But for myself, I want to show people that vulnerability is not a bad thing, because it unites us and it helps us to see that we're not alone.
That's very true. Exactly.
Well, it's really, really great to talk to you. Is there anything else that you would like to share about or dive in?
Well, if anyone's interested in contacting me or learning more about me and what I do, they can go to my website, davidrabadi.com. And Rabadi's R for rabbit, A for apple, B for boy, A for apple, D for David, I for ice, davidrabadi.com. And there's links to where they can purchase my book, or if they have any other interests or want to reach out to me, I can be contacted through my webpage.
That's great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for just, being so vulnerable and bringing a positive message. I'm so thankful that Jimmy Star could bring us together.
Yes, that was amazing. Thank you.
So the way that I end my videos is I give hugs. Hugs.
Oh, thank you. I'm giving a hug back to you.
I think I would really love to read your book and then maybe even have another conversation about it, if you'd be open to that.
Yes, I would.
Great. So I hope we will talk again later. Bye.
Okay. Take care. Bye.